Hi, my name is Romen, and welcome to Romen's Roulette. This is a game show where we test our contestants on the history of Europe, and today's subject is the dissolution of the USSR. And our contestants for today are first category is economic issues. Number 1, how did the perestroika contribute to the dissolution of the USSR?
Quite the perplexing question.
I got it, Roman!
Pierce.
Perestroika contributed to the dissolution of the Soviet Union because it didn't provide a foundation for a strong market economy.
But how?
Because although Gorbachev reformed certain aspects of the economy, for example, he changed new freedoms including greater control over production methods, hiring, and sourcing of inputs, he decided to leave in place some aspects, for example, state ownership of the means of production, incentives based on quantitative targets rather than profits, and price controls. The Soviet economy needed full reform, and Gorbachev was unwilling to fulfill the reform that the economy needed. This partially reformed economy was not enough to bring the Soviet economy out of stagnation that was characterized during the Stalin era. The Stalin era consisted of shortages of food, housing, and clothing for many years. This also caused the Soviet economy to become corrupt.
Correct. 200 points to Pierce. Category number 2 is nationalism. Number 2, how did nationalism contribute to the downfall of the USSR?
This question truly has to be puzzle. I got it.
Yeah, Declan.
Nationalism contributed by inspiring revolutions in the Eastern Bloc.
But how?
Because the nations under Soviet control in Eastern Europe were all independent prior to World War II. They each had their own identity and culture. Gorbachev's reforms allowed free thought to spread once more, and with it the Soviet repression of nationalist ideas was lifted. The subsequent explosion of nationalism and reemergence of nationalist identities within the Eastern Bloc, alongside discontent with the Soviet government, led to revolution. Although most revolutions, such as the Velvet Revolution in former Czechoslovakia, were peaceful, some, such as Romania's revolution against Ceausescu, led to widespread violence.
It is correct. 200 points for Declan. For category number 3, we have politics. Our third question is, how did politics contribute to the downfall of the Soviet Union?
Sir!
And Michael.
My thinking is correct. Gorbachev had certain political reforms, such as glasnost and perestroika, that loosened Soviet control on the Eastern Bloc.
Michael, you were close, but that's not enough for the right answer. What are you on for?
Perestroika was actually not a political reform, it was actually generally economic. Therefore, Mike was incorrect.
Oh, blunder! But how? The main political cause of the fall of the Soviet Union was Gorbachev's enlightened politics and reforms like glasnost that focused on giving his people free speech, press, and will, and promoting open thought. This allowed the people to rupture the power of the Soviet Union from the inside through protests and uproar, whereas on the outside, when Eastern Bloc countries began to abandon communism and the USSR began to lose influence, Gorbachev chose not to interfere, preaching a reform-minded Soviet Union that ultimately loosened its grip, allowing communism to slip out of popularity and giving more freedom to protesters looking to bring a downfall to the Soviet Union.
That is correct. 300 points for Andre. Category 4 is social factors. The question is, what social factors contributed to the downfall of the Soviet Union?
Aha!
Andre.
So Chernobyl was a social factor that led to the downfall of the Soviet Union because the government tried to lie about the events going on and the people lost trust.
But how?
The reactor meltdown at Chernobyl was the icing on the cake when it came to the downfall of the Soviet Union. Occurring in 1986, the USSR was already struggling with economic stagnation and the early reforms by Mikhail Gorbachev. The people were losing faith in the communist government, and Chernobyl accelerated it when the government attempted to cover it up. The disaster was not acknowledged until 2 days after, but even then the Soviet government severely downplayed its effects. Once the scale of the incident was too much to cover up for any longer, the Soviet citizens were informed over 3 weeks later. The people of the Soviet Union lost any trust they had left in the Soviet government, shifting popular opinion against that of the government. This led to the downfall of the Soviet Union and how the people lost trust in the government following the Chernobyl reactor meltdown, encouraging separatist movements against the government in Moscow.
Since you were half correct, we'll give you 100 points. So our biggest loser of the night is Michael with 0 points. And it seems we have a two-way tie for second place between Pierce and Declan, who both got 200 points. And our winner, with the prize of a brand new vacuum, the Dyson 200, is Andre. The most significant causes of the dissolution of the Soviet Union during the late 1980s and early 1990s were politically, through corruption and policies that loosened Soviet control, economically, through weak planned economies, and socially, through the rise of nationalism and the outcome of Chernobyl. The spread of free thought in the Eastern Bloc also led to revolutions.